welcome everybody. Thank you for joining today's boardroom. So we've got the lovely Marion Hewitt on the call, who's a HR consultant, who is going to be facilitating today's boardroom. And we're going to be discussing maintaining focus around mental health. So I'm going to hand over shortly to Marion. Just to let you all know, the call is being recorded for those that cannot attend. Sorry, Marion, I've just got a few more coming in, so I'm just going to let them pass over.
I know you had a lot booked, so it's good that people are joining.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to hand over.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. Oh, good. I've got all the buttons have come up on my screen now. Right. So, I've got to let people in as well. Right. Yeah. So I'm Marion, and yeah, I've been hosting a few of these discussions, but the topic today is one that a lot of my work is around. I deliver mental health first aid training and various other mental health awareness courses, and my route to that is from multiple strands. It's from frustration from the days when I was in the corporate world of dealing with symptoms and situations, rather than actually looking a step ahead and looking at culture and what you can do to create a supportive environment, as a preventative measure, but B, to help people when they are experiencing difficulties. And then the other element is more from the personal side, which I do share with her permission, is from supporting one of my daughters who has always struggled with a level of anxiety and depression. And it was only a couple of years ago that she got to a place where she was actually able to start recognizing the impact it was having on her life. I mean, she's an adult, she's 27 now. But actually listening to her when she started to articulate how she'd been living, the challenges she'd been experiencing, and understanding, or actually recognizing how little I'd understood, although I thought I had, was actually a very tough learning experience. And I'm quite sure that my lack of understanding is not going to be unique. So a lot of what I want to do is actually to really help people have a much greater understanding and empathy of what it might be like. So I think when we're talking about raising awareness and reducing stigma, a lot of that actually is around making that emotional connection with people to actually really understand what we mean by mental health and mental ill health. So just as a sort of a starting point, before we move into discussions, because as you know, most of what we do on these calls is about talking in groups and sharing ideas and thoughts. Last year, with everything that's happened, actually mental health, mental illness, they were terms that suddenly became part of our everyday vocabulary in a way that they hadn't before. You know, you'd hear people interviewed on the news and they'd talk about their mental health in a way that actually it didn't feel acceptable to talk about. So we've started the conversations, but I think that's still a long way to actually really getting to a point of treating mental health in the same way as we do physical health. And, you know, how we get to the point when people will say, oh, my anxiety levels are high today, or I'm experiencing a low mood today, in the way that somebody will come in and say, oh, I've got a stinking cold and I feel rubbish, because we still are a long way from that. So what we're going to just talk about within the groups and sharing your ideas is, you know, from the raising awareness to next steps, we've started talking about it, but what actually is that meaning? And, you know, how do you get to the point where people will talk as openly? And actually, I think a key thing are behaviours aligning with messages. So is the culture actually living the messages you're giving? You know, you can have the most wonderful training programs, but actually if there are other things within your culture that mean people still don't feel able to talk, or when they do talk they then feel they're penalized, or, you know, they don't get the support they need, it's looking at it in a much broader perspective. So last year, a survey, this was done in about the middle of the year, where organisations were asked if they felt there was backing from board senior management as a result of COVID. And you can see a resounding majority saying they were. So we are certainly starting to get greater senior engagement, actually recognising there's a real business case. Actually it's an imperative. There weren't many businesses that kept going flourishing in the absence of any employees last year, or any time for that matter. So actually it's recognising when we're talking about it as part of the business strategy, we actually are really getting genuine commitment at senior level. And if we're looking at overall health, I've shared this definition millions of times now, I think. When we're looking at health in its totality, we're looking at a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being, and recognizing it's not just about the absence of disease or infirmity. There's a difference between being okay and really getting to a point of encouraging people to flourish. If anybody's got any interest in the area of positive psychology, well-being is about having a balance, which is great. Flourishing is about getting to an even more positive place. And mental health isn't an all or nothing. I've recognised a couple of names on here that will be familiar with this model. It's used within mental health first aid, but it was from an academic model, Keys back in 2002. And it's recognising that mental illness, mental health, mental well-being, they're different things. And you can have somebody, so if you look at the horizontal axis, you have mental illness, where you can go from no illness diagnosed to diagnosis of something serious. And on the vertical, you will have mental well-being. And if very simply, that creates 4 quadrants for us. Somebody would have no diagnosis and good mental well-being, and that's where we're aiming to be. Then the bottom right, no diagnosis and poor mental well-being. The bottom left would be where somebody has a diagnosis of a severe illness and is also experiencing poor mental well-being, so they're not coping with it well either. And the top left is where somebody has been diagnosed with a severe illness, but they are coping with it well. There's a lot of language around mental health and mental illness that's not helpful. Things like a mental health problem. It isn't necessarily. It could be something that, that people can be diagnosed with something like bipolar disorder, but they're on medication and they're managing it well, and actually their overall mental well-being is positive. And I think over the last year, most of us will have at different points have gone slightly down the vertical axis. We've all had demands on our resources in ways that we didn't anticipate. And I think certainly now there's quite a lot of talk actually just about a weariness with the ongoing demands, even with some positive signs out there now. So I was just pulling up some, they're not really random figures, because I pulled about for reasons, and I've tried to have got sources for them, because there are an awful lot of stats out there, and some of them it's quite difficult to track back to proper resources. But the first one, it costs a business £1,300 per employee per year if their mental health isn't supported. And that figure was in a report back in 2017, when they were it was estimated that the total cost was 35 billion, whereas we now know that the cost of mental health has gone up since then. But if you were just to think of that cost in relation to your organisation, what's the cost? 69% of managers say supporting employee well-being is a core skill, yet only 13% of people have actually received, of managers have actually received training. And that came from Business in the Community report last year. And we keep talking about managers and employees, and I think one of the things with all our interventions is actually remembering that managers are people too, and look at how we are supporting them in supporting their staff. A fairly staggering statistic with the estimated cost of mental health in the UK last year at 45 billion. Personally, I think it's nigh on impossible to fully quantify the cost of it when you look at where people are possibly feeling in a low mood and not working at their full capacity. You can't possibly quantify all of that. What was interesting is when that was broken down, actually the largest proportion of that cost is related, about 60% is related to lost productivity. So when we are generally thinking about, you know, dealing with absence and losing in turnover, actually it's the loss of productivity that is by far the biggest impact of mental ill health. Investing in mental health training can deliver a return of up to 8 times the investment, and that was from a Deloitte survey back in 2017. And a more recent survey, which was, I don't quite know why university in Spain was carrying out a survey of British workers, but employees, but this is, they found that 2 in 5 people surveyed felt down, depressed or hopeless about the future because of the COVID crisis. And that's pretty emotive language. So some fairly difficult stats when we actually think about what we're dealing with. So what I would like us to think about within the discussions that you're going to have now is, you know, where have you seen wins? Where are you experiencing challenges? You know, whether that's in terms of getting generally employee buy-in, whether it is actually getting the commitment at a senior level, whether it's actually not knowing quite where to start, where is it, and how are you measuring impact? You know, mental health affects every aspect of the working environment. You know, it affects productivity, it affects accuracy, error rate, customer service levels, turnover, absence, employer reputation, in terms of, you know, how people feel they are being supported. So what are you doing to do that? Whilst, you know, on one hand, it is absolutely the right thing to be supporting people, and at one level I always think, why do we have to have a clear business case to be doing the right thing? But we know from, you know, we have to actually being able to recognise the financial impact of it. And then, are we thinking broadly enough? You know, mental health is about the outcome, if you like, of our total experience in the work environment. Are we thinking about, you know, leadership styles, job design, attitudes towards performance and people talking, you know, the flexibility in the way we work? It's not just about, although obviously I'm going to advocate mental health awareness training, mental health first aiders, it's not just about that, it's looking at all different elements of how we work. So, well, quite a few things thrown in as food for thought. So I would like you to actually, you know, get the best from this, from talking in some groups, and then we'll share ideas. And part of that is focusing, you know, where have you seen wins? What's worked well for you on the last year where you've had to adapt and bring things through? So the first conversation I'd like us to have was on that first, on the slide that I put up, in terms of, you know, where have you seen wins? What has been creating successes for you? Because hopefully that will then be of value as ideas for other people. So should we go for 10 minutes on that? So I know it won't be enough, however, because there's so much to talk about on this, but then I want you to have a chance to feedback sort of the key ideas that you had. So we've got, let's see how many people we've got. So if I put you into 4 rooms, that will give you hopefully 5 people in each. If you haven't got your camera and mic on now, I'd really appreciate it if you can put that on certainly once you get into the room, so you can all contribute. So yeah, so 10 minutes on that, and thinking about, you know, what has worked well, what have been your wins, and actually share those ideas so we can collate a list all together. Is quite a useful thing to do. So I will see you in 10 minutes.
Hey.
Are we all here? 5 of us.
Hello.
Yeah.
Shall we start saying which companies we're from to get an idea of context?
Yes,
that's a good idea.
Okay, I'll start. I'm from the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, so we're a not-for-profit organisation. We have head office in Maidenhead. We're a global organisation in over 150 countries. Predominantly, a big bulk of our workforce are gardeners, maintaining cemeteries. keeping the memory of those that lost their lives in the First and Second World Wars. And, yeah, that's sort of the background.
Lovely.
Thanks, Andrew.
I'm from the Hilton Hotel in Bournemouth.
So did you say the Hilton Hotel? Sorry.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Very challenging at the moment for you, I imagine.
Yeah, it's really hard because we closed and it's really hard. Yeah.
So you got a lot of staff on furlough leave at the moment?
Yes, we just only have a few team members working on caretaker team, but most people on furlough.
Tough times. I work for Birmingham Electrical Training. We provide apprenticeships for young people trained to be electricians, and also refresher courses and other courses for qualified electricians as well. So it's typically very male dominated. Can be difficult to start that conversation about mental health, but we are beginning to chip away at that.
So I work for a company called Kane International. We are a private manufacturer. We've got about 100 employees. We were really hit by COVID at the start. We had to furlough 3/4 of our employees, but it bounced back in the summer, and so we got everyone back, and now we can't make our products quick enough, so we've got extras and temps in helping us. It's been a bit of a roller coaster 12 months. We've had to start furloughing people again now, not because of lack of business, but just because of their status as being clinically extremely vulnerable. As a manufacturer, most of our team can't work from home, so they have to be in the office, so we have to try and minimize the potential risk of spread of the transmission by people like me that can work from home. We are working from home, but it's only about 10%. So that's me.
And I'm Amy. I'm from HR Recruit. I'm not a HR professional, unfortunately. So but I'm going to do the listening on this group this session. So I'll let you guys kick off with where have you seen wins? Has anyone got anything that they can particularly think of?
Well, we've been helped with. Sorry. We've been helped by Ofsted for certainly our apprentices, because it is increasingly a sort of soft requirement that we do some mental health awareness sessions, which I typically run with all the cohorts of our apprentices. And really, I'll be honest and say, so that's a win. We're starting to do those. I've done those. We do those. So everybody, all the apprentices that's starting to come through are having that. So there's some exposure there. But the challenge for me is to keep that going. It shouldn't just be just a one-off kind of seminar, if you like. And I do worry sometimes about. I think probably my expectation was that I would raise awareness, talk to them about some of the things to look after in terms of their own mental health and some signs to look for. Also signpost them and give them some takeaways about organisations that their colleagues or their friends could approach. And that's really where it's sitting now. And my challenge now is to build on that. So that's my so I'm the HR and learning development manager. So that's kind of learning development side of my role. And then I'm a trained first aider for staff as well. So so that's a slightly different focus. And I'm not sure. We do things, but we don't. Sometimes it's a little bit ad hoc, and I think it needs to be a little bit more systematic. Can be a bit of reluctance from our staff. As I say, they're typically male as well. Not all of them male as well. So I sometimes struggle with that. I'd be interested to Phil. Are you particularly? My role is fairly new. This role I'm doing now is fairly new to me. Prior to that, I was in manufacturing, and I really enjoyed the roles I did in manufacturing. Again, that was quite male dominated. How are you finding the challenge in manufacturing?
Yeah. So thanks for the opportunity to respond to that, because I wanted to anyway, but I was also aware that Andrea wanted to say something. So I'll just quickly say my bit then. So we are, as a manufacturer, we are probably about 80% male, 20% female. Our customer base, however, is almost entirely male, because the products that we manufacture are used by heating engineers, gas plumbers, etc. So just to mirror what you said, I do have the mental health first aid book. I have been on the course, and I recommend it to everybody. So anyone that's in HR, I think a 2-day workshop is totally recommended. I've been on it myself. We're looking to put some other people in the office through that awareness training as well. I think it's quite important that we have a lady and a man, because some people prefer talking to the same sex, etc. But also, one of the things we've done, is just to answer the quick win question, is it's working with charities. So gets the focus out of ourselves a little bit when we think about doing good and trying to, from our corporate social responsibility point of view, is one thing, but also actually getting on the level with our customers. Our customers are typically male heating engineers who are often working alone, so they're kind of isolated, and like you say, guys don't talk about their mental health. So we wanted to partner with a charity that specialized in that, so men. And in fact, if you don't know about it already, suicide is the biggest killer of men under 40, which when I first heard that, I was just absolutely gobsmacked. And so there's a campaign, you may see it on the Dave TV channel, called CALM, Campaign Against Living Miserably. So they target that kind of specific demographic, if you like, with social media and such like. And so we've partnered with them. We do monthly charitable events. We also partner with 2 other charities. One's a cancer charity, and one is the Hearts and Essex Air Ambulance. But we really wanted to partner with a charity that our customers can get on board with. We can retweet their campaigns and actively do things to try and raise awareness of that it's actually okay to talk about mental health. And especially from a bloke point of view, he's a football fan, he's your stereotypical guy that doesn't want to talk about anything like that. So we're working quite well with that, and we've got point of sale up around the office and flyers that we have out as well. So it's just to break that stigma down a little bit, I think. But I've probably spoken for longer than I should, so I will pass on to the others.
It's okay. Andrea, did you want to go next?
Muted.
Helps if I unmute myself. So that follows on nicely, actually, because we have partnered with a charity called Perennial, who are a horticultural charity and look after organisations and people that work in the sort of gardening sector. Obviously, a lot of our population are gardeners. They tend to be male. They're not all male, but they tend to be males again. In France, unfortunately, we have in the past had suicides. That seems to be more prolific over there than even the UK. So, but the Perennial will give support and advice to our staff, which we've been promoting. And also we've provided some virtual learning at the moment. That's the best way to be doing it, to managers on 2 sorts of training. One was how to spot signs, and the other one was how to manage virtually. So, which is useful anyway, because some of our teams, obviously, they're out all over scattered, and the managers have to travel between sites. So, so it has several things. So, we've been doing various things in the head office, office-based staff primarily. We've run out training that's on sort of wellbeing initiatives. So we've done one on posture and how to look after your physique. And we're now running out one.
Good discussions.
That was quick.
I said it would be. Okay. Somebody in group 1 just like to quickly list a few of the ideas that they discussed as wins. So that was Caroline, Nicola, Sharon.
Yeah, so we discussed quite a number of points. We had the EAP was obviously quite a hot subject in our group. We all agreed that having that service there is just kind of a support mechanism. Then when the NHS is struggling at the moment and people need that immediate kind of support and someone to talk to, that the EAP is quite a good thing. It's a good quick win for businesses at the moment. Stress workshops, I think we mentioned those, which is fantastic as well, and training managers so they understand trigger points as well. That was another one that came up. And a wellbeing survey, that was the final one that came up, I think. So sending out Survey Monkeys, Google Forms, and then being proactive and doing work out the back of those as well.
Great, good list there, thank you. I think with the EAP, they're great things to have. The only thing that I think you quite often hear is, oh, you know, you'll talk to HR and they'll say, oh yes, we've got an EAP scheme. You'll talk to employees and they say, oh, we've got something, but I'm not quite sure what it is. So, and the take-up levels are ridiculously low. I mean, I think people, EAP providers count a 10% engagement level as a success. So whilst at an investment, it doesn't sound that much per head if you look at only, you know, a small proportion of using it. So actually, yeah, I think it's a really good point, Julianne. You know, if you've got one, actually make sure you're making the most of it as a resource and being really clear as to what it can offer and provide. So thank you. Room 2, Sarah, Claire, Paula, somebody from your room?
So we had very similar to what Group 1 had in terms of pulse surveys and resilience workshops, but in addition to that, we had 2 other things. So one was around HR visibility, so making sure people understood who to contact and when, and just familiarising themselves with who's who in the HR team. And then second of all was that comms strategy piece, so whether it be calling people or emailing, that need for regular contact to also then reach out to employees as well. So they were the other additional things in addition to number 1.
Thank you very much. Room 3, so that was Phil, Sting, Andrea, Sarah.
Well, I spoke for too long, so we didn't even get a chance for all of us to speak. So I feel a bit bad saying this, but so apologies, Sting, for not being able to say your part. I'll make sure I shut up next time. Just very quickly, yeah, we also spoke about partnering with charities and mental health first aid training, and yeah, just networking with other organisations and signposting, to name a few.
Yeah. Thank you. Glad to hear you got mental health first aiders in there. That's good.
Yeah, got my book.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Good. And room 4. So that was Helen, Jackie. Any other things you'd like to add?
We covered the mental health first aid at work advantage of having that programme, rolling out training across the whole company, creating an environment where people can talk and make it an open conversation as well. So much the same as you've already covered.
Brilliant. Thank you. Excellent. So I've just scribbled down all the things. Sometimes I'll put them all into a blog, and if I do that, then I'll share them all out so you've got everybody's ideas. So I think what would be helpful next would just be to think, you know, what are the challenges you've had, because, you know, you will have done it's just trying to get people to talk about things and, you know, really get commitment from all levels, parts of the business. So the challenges that you've had, and then on the back of that, you know, sharing expertise and ideas as to, you know, how you've overcome them in another organisation. So you've got an opportunity to, if you like, collaborate and share thoughts. So right, how long are we allowed to stay? We've got, right, so it's 1 o'clock. We're supposed to finish about 20:15. So we will go into groups again for you to do this one, and we'll go for just under 10 minutes. So I'll keep you in the same room so you don't have to do all the introductions again. That speeds things up. All right, so put you back into your room. So what have been your challenges, and then sharing ideas as to how other people have overcome those challenges. All right, I will see you then.
Sting, I think you should have the opportunity to go first on this one.
Oh, thank you. It's all right. I've had like mental health first aider training. So what I've tried to do is like signposting where people can go. So we work with Dorset Mind. So I always like let my team know that Dorset Mind is available in case they don't feel comfortable to let me know their issues. I find it difficult with furlough at the moment to get people engaged or to speak up, because some people are embarrassed. You only find out, like last year, we only found out when we reopened the hotel, some people who live alone struggled just being alone or being anxious when the hotel is reopening. And yeah, so sometimes it's just difficult to engage with those people, because we do like welfare calls, but when you check in on someone, they say, yeah, everything is fine, but they're not feeling comfortable just to speak up. I think that's the challenge. Yeah.
Just out of interest, are they video calls or telephone calls?
Telephone calls, yeah. Most people prefer telephone. They don't fancy Zoom. I know when we do some meetings, we do Zoom, but most people are not like.
Yeah.
They'll be out and about. Like in the summer, people were having cocktails and stuff, so they didn't feel comfortable doing Zoom calls. So we do like phone calls just to say, I'm checking in on you. I hope everything's okay. Is there anything I can do to assist? Just a normal general conversation. And yeah, but we're still not getting that openness and engagement. Only when they come back to work and they're very busy, and then they start saying, oh, you know, I haven't been working for ages, I'm struggling with workload, I'm struggling. And then that's when you realize.
That's when you see the pressure cooker.
Yeah, because initially we thought we are just fine. When we did the welfare calls, everybody's fine, but actually when we opened and people are working, they're back to work, we start seeing the cracks. But I don't know how to resolve that yet. So yeah.
So we had the same thing in the office. We all worked from home in the first lockdown, and we were just starting to phase return people on a rota basis to reduce the numbers in the office. And there was quite a lot of fear and resistance about coming back in. So I think this lockdown's even longer. I can see that being a problem again when we come back. And again, people don't tell you. You get some people that are very open, but most people, the ones that are really hurting or not feeling great, are the ones that actually don't tell you and put on a process. How to get them to feel, how you can get in without being nosy or them feeling invaded.
Yeah.
Just a couple of points. I was working for the manufacturing organisation during the first lockdown, and I did a lot of furloughing of staff. And we did furloughing for our children first, I suppose, and people that were vulnerable. And what we did, and we were more in the office at the time, and so it might have been easier for us to do it and to achieve it. But we did send to all of our colleagues that were not on site, and this was a 24/7 operation, we used to send them a week something every week. So for example, we sent them a packet of seeds in March, and then later in the year we revisited that, and they sent photographs of the seeds that had grown. We sent them information another week about exercises that they could do it in the home, so they didn't need any particular equipment, so looking after their physical health. We sent some information about finances as well, and various other initiatives. Those are just some of the ones I can remember off the top of my head, but we tried to do that weekly, and each time we did that, of course, we reminded people of the EAP line and our numbers, etc. And we got some really good feedback from that. Actually, the engagement from those employees was very strong, and we were very pleased with that initiative. So that's one thing. The other thing, very quickly, because I don't want to hog the conversation, is if you go into my LinkedIn profile, so I spell Sarah, S-A-R-A, I put a post before Christmas about some suicide awareness training that I did. It's online, it's free, it takes about 2 hours. ZSA, it's called. So if any of you are interested in doing that, you can pick it up from my post against my name on LinkedIn, and that was quite eye-opening, and it gives you a few pointers about maybe what to look for and maybe how to start a dialogue if it's needed. Might be of interest to you.
Yeah,
lovely.
What was the name of that course, please?
It's by ZSA, ZSA. If you go onto my LinkedIn profile, I think ZSA stands for Zia Suicide Allowance. It's an online sort of web, I say a course, it's an awareness session, I guess, really. But I find it quite useful, very practical, very down to earth. And interestingly, after I put that post on just my private LinkedIn, not on the company LinkedIn, anything like that, some of our tutors have done that off their own bat. So if it helps just one person, then that's a good thing, I reckon.
Thank you.
Bill, anything from you on the challenges?
Just quickly, I think, yeah, the kind of feeling of being disconnected is something that we're all have learned now, working remotely when others are still working, or 1 minute left, are still working in the office. So it's almost like there's an us and them. And I think that one of the stigmas of working from home, for those that can't, think that people aren't actually working from home. They think they're just doing the washing or the ironing, where the reality is quite the opposite. It's the risk of burnout and working too many hours because you just sort of fall out of bed and start working straight away, and you're not in that routine. And so I think, putting in clear markers, like when the day finishes and when it's lunchtime, have a structured day, even when working from home, which sounds a bit it can sound a bit patronizing sometimes. So it's how it's packaged, but allowing people to know that actually, you only have to work your normal hours, and just because you're already at home, you can just, switch off, disconnect. Otherwise, the emails just keep coming in and you just never stop. And that's something that I've experienced and had to set an alarm to say, right, that's it. The rest can wait till tomorrow, So that's just one of the challenges.
Yeah. God, this is all so apt. We had
I'll just ask generally, was there anything anybody would like to share about a challenge they raised and a potential solution, if it's that straightforward, or just about challenges, just sharing any challenges that you faced in the work?
I think one that we shared and that I shared was I work in hospitality, so it's not been ideal the last year. We've closed three times now, and where we struggle is the balance between people that are furloughed and people that are working, and it's created a really big divide between the two. And it's created this divide of not understanding each other. So the people who are working are not thinking that the people on furlough are on a holiday, and the people that are on furlough are thinking, why wasn't I chosen to work? And so it's really kind of affected the balance in the teams, and it's actually really made people question their positions and question what they want to do. And in some ways it was good that they've actually started to use some people requested part-time hours when they came back the first time round because they wanted a bit more work-life balance, which was great. But this third time, we're now saying to people, we're hoping this is the very last time, so make the most of this time. And we're sending them all, so every week we send them either courses they can do, or a language they can learn, or gardening tips. And we're getting everybody in the hotel to do little demos each week. So we're doing cocktails next week and all sorts of things just to keep them engaged. But also, when we speak to them, it does feel a little bit different this time round. But I think if it continues for a long period, or we have to close again, I think it will really damage the mental health. So it's how to cope with a team that have had a year of uncertainty has been my biggest challenge, without an end date in sight.
Yeah. That's quite interesting, because we were talking this morning about planning next events, and one of the ideas we've got for the next series is actually looking at sort of reintegrating staff that have been furloughed and all the challenges that's going to face. So look out for that one at the beginning of March. What other challenges did people share?
Getting back to basics was quite a big one for us. Because people that are used to being in an office didn't necessarily use Google Hangouts or Zoom or anything like that, and suddenly they were tossed into a world where they couldn't speak to anybody, and was like, oh, and you go, just join a Hangout, and they'll go, what's that? And it's just trying to make them feel part of it, so they could join in with things rather than going, oh no, I can't do that, I'm not available, but actually it's because I didn't know how to.
Yes, the words that have come into our vocabulary in the last year. I heard my mum, who's 77, saying something about live streaming something. Blimey, a year ago, would you have had any idea what that was about? What other challenges?
A lot of the ones that came up in our group were actually around furlough as well. So engaging with people whilst they are on furlough. and the challenges of people not wanting to do video calls, and the fear and resistance of returning to work. Yeah, so they were very much around furlough.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And I think one of the challenges is actually understanding the root cause of people's resistance. You know, when people don't want to show, have their camera on, is it because they're, you know, not feeling great and don't want to be seen? Or is it because they're, you know, they're not working in an environment that they want people to see where they're living? Or is it they're not joining because actually they don't use the technology? So actually really getting to the root of what are the genuine barriers, not necessarily the things that people are first saying. Any other thoughts? So given the session was entitled Maintaining Focus, and we've talked about, there's loads of ideas people have shared, there's been some challenges, but then there's also been some really creative responses to those challenges. I'd like you to each think about one new idea or something perhaps that's been on your list that you're actually going to implement as an outcome of participating today. So in terms of maintaining focus, what single thing would you like to take away from today that you'd feel you can commit to? Just take a minute to think about that. Anybody got anything that's come to mind immediately they'd like to share? So this is totally for you. Nobody's under any pressure to share, but anybody wants to say anything, then that's great.
I think one of the ones that came to light, and I think it's something that we need to do as well, is to reiterate to staff so they can make the most of the EAP service. So some of them are not aware of what is there for them. You know, they could talk to the EAP service about if they're getting a mortgage, or if they've just gone through a redundancy, or if they can get support for their family members. So it's about reiterating, doing that communication piece to make sure they're fully aware of what services is available to them.
Yeah. And sometimes some of that is actually around ensuring the culture of trust, so that people really trust that it's confidential. Any other actions to share?
I think maybe that that kind of whole visibility thing, that you know, that HR is not just the smiling assassin, and that the door, whether it's physical or virtual door, is open, and you know, it is okay to come and sort of talk about whatever, but to have that action plan at the end.
Yeah. Although my challenge back would be that supporting mental health is an organisation-wide responsibility. It's not something that's on the HR to-do list.
No,
so
absolutely,
yeah, we may be the ones that want to be innovative and, you know, ensuring the buy-in and, you know, demonstrating the values, but it's not, you know, we've come a long way from personnel as the welfare function. So I think just
and I think the challenge is that it is always led from the top.
Yeah,
really.
absolutely. Yeah, but I mean, I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. I'm just, you know, also saying that I think it's a wider one.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So just one thing we wanted to share with you. Some of you may have, lost it. As a follow-up and as a key part to mental health, and particularly HR mental health, is looking after yourself and self-care. So I've been offering, if it's of interest, if any of you are in larger organisations, complimentary self-care power hour sessions, which is just a chance for you to think about self-care, its importance, overcoming obstacles, and putting together a plan. So it's an interactive hour, usually fit it over lunchtime. But if you're part of an organisation with a team, HR people, I like to do that, because I think the impact of the last year on HR has been very much unrecognised and unacknowledged. So it's a sort of give back, and I think we may be running it as an open one again. I'm not sure when, beginning of March, I think. So I think those are the key things to wrap up with, that you've all taken away something, I hope, that you are going to take as an action. A few of you have mentioned mental health first aiders. I'll give Amy the details in case she wants to share them. I do a monthly free networking and support group for accredited first aiders, that if you've got people in your organisation that might be of interest. So Amy, should I pass back to you, that you can do your wrap up and whatever else you need to say?
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you everyone for attending. I hope you've all taken away some great points. Marion, you've definitely got us all thinking, which is good. So hope to see you all on the next boardroom. If anyone does have any direct queries, I will be sending out a follow-up email, also with Marion's details on and mine. So yeah, the only thing I'd ask is if you know enjoyed the call, I will be putting a post on LinkedIn, so feel free to share, and yeah, thank you everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Take care, have a good afternoon.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone. Cheers. Bye.